Good morning. Good morning. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me here today. It's pretty damn early. I guess 7 o'clock. That's not 7 o'clock Pacific time. That's not too early, right? But I do have to get my day started right now. So I'm glad you guys could be here with me today. We've got a couple of things to talk about as try to get situated here. Probably stop this music from playing. Gets annoying as it tries to play while I'm talking. But thank you again for joining me this morning on the first live stream of the show version live stream. I'll be going live every day for the next 7 days, doing just challenging myself to do something different because I'm here at home. And it's been a weird experience just being at home. I don't know about you guys, but I am an introvert, so I really like it. I really like staying home and not being able to go out anywhere. Although today I do have to leave the house and go to work to go do something. But I do appreciate DeLargo for interrupting your CWNA studies. I hope that's going well. And I'm really glad you're going for your CWNA. And I know for you East Coasters, Mike, it's 10 a.m. over there. So you're well in your day. Although I believe a lot of people are still in their PJs at 10 a.m., probably still sleeping or maybe just getting up. And Jim, thank you for joining. Really glad you guys can make it. So again, doing this live stream for 7 days, going to see how it goes, just to change things up here at home. I've been sleeping in for the last, few weeks and starting work pretty late because in the Bay Area, there's a lot of traffic. You usually get up early to avoid that traffic. And now I do not have to do any of that, right? I can just wake up, brush my teeth, and then open up my computer and start working. And so this is my way of virtually social distancing myself with some people at work because I have been being invited to way too many meetings and I just can't, especially if the virtual meeting could have been done or in an email, right? It didn't need to happen. And I'm sure you guys agree with me too. It's just sometimes meetings don't get anything done. And there's no agenda. We don't know what's happening, and I'm just there wasting time, right? So I hope you guys have your coffee. I got a Keurig real quick coffee, and it's pretty good. I forgot which coffee grounds that my wife buys, but she gets it from Costco. And so gonna start this day for the next 7 days a little bit different. Gonna really set the tone for myself and get a lot done while we are still in quarantine. I know in California they're gonna start letting people ease up on these restrictions pretty soon. So I think it's best that I actually get more done than usual. And Garrett, thank you for joining. Garrett's in the house. And it's afternoon over there. So he's coming from the Netherlands. And Anders is just leaving the office to go home. So cheers, Anders and Garrett. Have a beer on me. I'll get there soon. And Mike, this is actually my second cup of coffee. I actually woke up at 6 a.m. because a lot of times when I do a podcast recording for Clear Descent with Francois, I get hit with allergies in the morning. So like typically my eyes get all itchy. And so I wanted to get that out of the way. And it feels itchy right now. So I'm not going to scratch it. So today in this episode, I'm going to talk about what now after passing DevNet Associate. Like what the heck do I do with that, right? I'm not a developer. I went and studied for the DevNet Associate. What do I do now? I'm going to talk about an experience I went through yesterday in troubleshooting other people's networks and specifically a home network. And sometimes it's not fun, but we'll talk about what I did there, we'll maybe share some of our own stories, and then I will talk about CCNP Enterprise because I found some interesting things in there. And so I'm going to set a goal for myself on these live streams. And that goal is to get to 25 likes on the live stream. All right, it's pretty low, 25 likes. And if we get to 25 likes, I'm going to share the worst IT mistake I have ever made in my career. All right, so I don't think I've ever shared it with anyone. And over time, I think about what happened in my mind. I try to replay those events and try to think, did I screw that up somehow? And we ended up bringing in, well, actually, I'll tell you more if we hit 25 likes. I'll save it if we don't. All right. So the idea for the name, the show version live stream, it was last minute. Last night, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something different. And sometimes I like to take risks and do something different. Francois and I went live on Clear to Send, and we enjoyed it. And I actually enjoyed it a lot. I like messing with all this equipment, all the microphones and all that. So I thought, why don't I try going live for 7 days straight and see how it goes and share some of my experiences and some of the things that I come across. And it's not just wireless, but it could also be, maybe we share something personal in our lives that we could help with other people, and also share things with network engineering and the resources that we use. Because I do a lot more than just wireless. I also do a lot of switching and fiber. Like today, I'm going to be going to work after this to set up some GPON. So that's a lot different from what we're using. But yes, it is about the show version command, Francois. That's where it came from, because typically when I log into devices, I actually run show version quite a bit. And so that's because I like to know what I'm working with. It doesn't matter if it's Cisco or Juniper or even Adtran equipment, which I have been configuring for a while now. I've been managing Adtran equipment for a while, so I'm constantly learning new commands and running commands to see what the output is. And part of that too is show version has some different meaning to it, meaning I show up and be a better version of myself every day. So better than yesterday. And so that's where show version came about. It is a combination of the CLI, command line interface command, and part of how I try to be in life. And so now, how are you guys doing? I want to check in with you guys. We got Francois coming from near Toronto and in London, Ontario. Jim, you are in Colorado, right? Because you used to work for a big airport over there. And then we got people from Netherlands. So I think it's actually really cool that we're able to get people from all over together here in the chat. And let me know where you're from, because I'm really interested in Netherlands is one of the countries I do want to visit one day, and hopefully when all this is done, right, this pandemic, we can travel easier. So again, if you came in late, I have a goal of hitting 25 likes on this video during the live stream, and I will share my worst IT mistake I've ever made, which is pretty bad, right? It was kind of a cascading effect. Thanks, Mike. North Carolina, haven't been there yet. Actually, I have, or was it South Carolina? I was in one of the Carolinas. Mexico, thank you for joining from Mexico. Appreciate it. Research Triangle Park. I think I know where that is. I think I have been there. It's been a while. All right. So I'm going to go into DevNet Associate a little bit. But before that, I know a lot of people have been impacted by COVID-19, right? And I have been watching what's been going on in California, specifically our governor. And I know what I do want to share are some interesting numbers, because there's a lot of people filing for unemployment. And I think even now, oh, Tom, thanks for joining. I know even now you're at home, or people will be at home, and it's kind of a bummer to not get paid or not be able to work because you're unable to physically show up in the office. And so that's where I think now is a good time to actually study and learn something new, which is why on Amazon I purchased a bunch of books to keep myself busy. And it's not that I'm not out of work. I actually still, after this live stream, I'll be working for my employer, and I'll be starting to deploy some internet to the home. So we're doing fiber to the homes. But like, look at these crazy unemployment rates, like going from 2000 to now. Like there's this huge spike here, and we're getting pretty hit hard here in California. And so I think it's unfortunate, right? And so my message to a lot of people is hang in there, and when this is all done, you can come out pretty strong, and maybe with some new skills, especially with some of these companies going with online testing. And I know Tom had replied to somebody on Twitter where someone was asking whether or not CWNP is also going to be doing online testing, and he did say that they are working on it, right? Tom can correct me in the chat room, but they are working on it, and it's because there's a lot of companies trying to work on it with Pearson VUE. I think that's Pearson for online testing. And so there's a backlog, I guess, to get to that point, and maybe they have made some preference to Cisco and having all their exams going online very recently. But yeah, I appreciate you guys going in the chat and reacting. Francois has a question here. What is the best way to maintain a CCNP wireless certification using the new Cisco certs? And I actually will go into some of the CCNP objectives, because I think it's interesting, but I haven't even attempted it yet. I only briefly looked at the exam objectives. Mike, good luck on your CWNA studies. It's CWNA is one of my favorite certifications, because it actually gave me that fundamental RF knowledge. Because prior to even studying for CWNA, I was troubleshooting some wireless and deploying wireless. And after reading through the study material, I learned I was doing it all incorrectly. I was doing it very wrong. And so I think by that time I had left that employer, so I wasn't able to go back and fix my mistakes. But now I'm a lot better at deploying wireless. And Tom did make a comment there about online testing. Pearson is dealing with nearly all of their customers wanting to do it. So yes, there's a big backlog to testing. So hopefully we'll get there. I see there's a comment about even working with YAML JSON data formats. I actually just posted a video on my YouTube channel yesterday about looking at the differences. So I think that's great that you're looking at that, because it's going to be important when you work with very different network devices. Some of them provide output in XML. Some use JSON. If you're working with Meraki, they do a lot of JSON. So great work there. All right, so I started going into DevNet Associate because I wanted to get myself more involved with Python and scripting. I wanted to be able to enhance what my current skill set is. And part of that is wanting to start automating the network, because I do a lot of command line interface into individual switches. And I know at my workplace, we do have automation in place where we use these different tools to deploy mass configuration changes. But I haven't gotten into creating any of my own scripts to try to be a little bit more efficient in that regards, especially if I was trying to look for something specifically, maybe any interfaces that have not been used for X amount of days, maybe shut those interfaces. I haven't tried anything like that. And I also wanted to improve my monitoring where I wanted to monitor specific things, specific events when it came to switches. And so that's why I started diving into the DevNet Associate. I thought it was a good time and a good excuse to get me more involved with Python. And so I studied for this exam starting, I think it was October or November of 2019. And then about 2 or 3 days after the exam was released, I ended up taking the exam and passing it on the first try. So I thought, hey, that was probably one of the harder exams I've taken since DevNet type of material or content is very new to me. And so that's where I figured I still have a lot of ways to go. So I was even surprised myself that I passed that exam, but I did use their website to actually study for everything. There were a couple of other websites that I used, but I primarily leveraged the Cisco's website here. I think if you click on, oh wait, no, that's the training. There was a page where they actually showed the objectives and some of the free resources that they have to study for those objectives. It seems like they removed it almost, but it was a nice resource, and I wish they still had it. Maybe it's exam topics. And so what I would do is, they used to have it here. They would list the exam topics here, and then on the right side, they would have the labs that you could do. And so here's where you actually go find the labs, developer.cisco.com. And so that's what I use to learn how to use scripts in order to do certain things on routers, switches, even WebEx. And I highly recommend you sign up for an account. It's free. You just sign up for a free account, and you could start messing around with Cisco devices. And I'll give you an example. Here is my iTerm, and all I'm doing is running this script here to get interfaces off of a lab router that Cisco has in the cloud, right? So this is giving me XML output. I'm using netconf. And so I was able to create the script through a lab. And so I look at this and I go, all right, so what am I supposed to do next after I have the DevNet Associate? Because I wanted to try to apply it with wireless. Francois and I have talked about this numerous times, especially in our Slack group. We have a Python channel, and Francois has been making some good progress on creating some scripts himself, because we work with Cisco wireless controllers, and now we're dealing with Mist, which has a very extensive API. And so we're trying to leverage or learn more Python to leverage those APIs so we can create things like our own dashboards and get the information that we want. And so that's kind of where I'm trying to lean towards afterwards. And then there are other things that I'm trying to do where I've got this one project where I need to migrate a bunch of network devices, a lot of network devices on a particular network onto a brand new network. So they're going to change all their IP addresses. We're talking about over 600 of these devices. So I need to migrate them from one network to another. And this is related to my fiber to the home project that I have going. And we utilize internally an IPAM. We use, I don't know if I can tell anyone, I think it is open source, but we have a database in which we track all these devices. And on this particular network, I have it where any device that does a DHCP discover, it will get an IP address. I can set it to where if it's not registered in the IPAM, it cannot get an IP address. And so that's where I'm leaning towards on this new network, but I need to migrate them, and I need to get the MAC address of all of those devices, their internet-facing MAC address, in order for them to get an IP address. And so that's where I'm trying to look at a CSV file. So I had someone dump out a CSV file for me that included the name of the device, the MAC address that it sees, and then I need to somehow create a script, a command line, basically command line that will add all of those MAC addresses into IPAM, and then change their IP addresses, move them to the new network, and that way I don't have to do it manually one by one, 600 of those, although I could delegate it, but I want to try to automate it. And so this is where I'm going to use or leverage Python in order to make those changes. And so I started thinking about it today, and I know with the DevNet Associate, you go through the first objective, which is software development and design. So you kind of have to think it through, and then before you even do anything, you start with the basics. Like, I want to take this device and add it into this IPAM and assign it this IP address. So there's my sequence of events, and then you got to think of it of, okay, what do I need to do to build out those blocks in order for it to work? And so that's where I'm at after DevNet. I'm actually now going to start using it and leveraging it in the workplace, even though that's not exactly what I do, but it will help me in the long run. So we got a question here from Isu. Sorry, I'm going to butcher your name here, but Isuyakai Kal. Working on the new DevNet Associate, is there any recommendation on materials? Yeah, so I think there's a book coming out soon. Let me see if I can find it. And I don't think it is out yet. And so the best way to study for this is to use developer.cisco.com. They pretty much have a lab for anything that you can see on the objectives of the website. But if you go on Amazon and just look up DevNet Associate, there is a book coming out. It's on pre-order right now, but you can get it when it comes out. So here it is. It's Cisco Certified DevNet Associate. That's the hardcover. Really great authors on this first edition. I don't know when it comes out, because you can see here this title has not been released. So I'm not sure when that book comes out. But I am trying to create some material on my own blog for specifically DevNet material that matches to those objectives. So I have some there that I've used to study on my own, and then again go to developer.cisco.com in order to find more of that content. Some other things that you might find useful, although you will have to dig a little bit, is I came across this website on Twitter, the 33 best automation books of all time. Now, these aren't specifically for the DevNet Associate, but it will help get you to fulfill some of those objectives. You just got to find the areas that make sense for the objective of the exam. But here we've got a lot of different books. So here's the website. I'll paste it into the chat if you guys want to take a look at that. There's a lot of great books here. And I'm still trying to decide which ones to get, because I've got some generic books, books that are more general about automation, but I want to look particularly in network automation, something that dives into the topic more deeply. So we've got Mastering Python Networking up here, Practical Network Automation, Automate Your Network, lots of great books here at the top. And then I haven't looked at these down here. Test Automation in the Real World. Here's a Cisco book, again by Jason Gooley. So lots of. What do you guys think? What are some of the books that you are using for network automation, if that's what you're looking at? All right, had to take a sip of coffee. So that's what I'm going to do after DevNet Associate. You know, it's like I take the exam, I have the certification now, and I made it to the DevNet 500, but it's about okay, what am I going to do with that knowledge? Where am I going to take it? And how am I going to apply what I've learned into the real world? And so hopefully I start to do that a lot more, especially with all the lab equipment that I have. I really have no excuse to try doing more of it. It's just a matter of setting the time. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about is troubleshooting other people's networks. So I had the experience where we're talking about fiber to the home here. And when you're working with faculty, they are a different breed than, say, customers of Comcast, for example, because they are residents on campus housing. So we don't treat them like a customer, where if it doesn't work, we'll do our best to reboot the modem, whatever, and you're kind of on your own. So we kind of give a better experience when it comes to faculty members or any other staff that live in our housing. And so we provide gigabit to the home, and generally if you're hardwired in, you'll get about a gigabit. But the downside is most people have their own wireless at home. And as you guys would imagine, we have a lot of wireless people here. Some of these setups aren't necessarily an ideal setup. It's not optimized for what they're trying to do. And so what I'm trying to do is add more value to what's a help desk role, because I see a lot of people try to skip help desk or the service desk and go straight to a network engineering role. And I find that there's a lot of value in having held a help desk role, because you understand how the user thinks, you understand what kind of issues they run into and how they're doing things. Because when if you just go straight to a network engineer and somehow some of these tickets get to you, you don't necessarily know what's happening, and you will try to kick that ticket down to somebody else. But I try not to do that too often, because, or if I do, I kind of put somebody in the right direction, like, hey, you should try this. And so in this case, a user kept saying, they have internet issues. It's pretty vague. And I kept pushing service desk to press for more information, right? Because it's kind of hard to go off of that needle in a haystack. Internet doesn't work. And every time I look at it, it looks great. And so I want to get people in the mindset of assisting others and setting expectations, because for people to just repeatedly do the same thing to try to fix the issue, as in, let me reboot your modem, and do that several times, does not fix the issue. And so when I saw that, it kind of irked me, because I go, this is not the best way to resolve it. And so I got involved. I actually put myself in that situation, and we ended up finding that it was most likely a wireless issue in the home, which they were using their own wireless. And so when we pressed for more information, I learned that they were using 2 Apple Airport Extremes, both set up on the same SSID. They were using the same SSID on both Airport Extremes, but they were witnessing, after we spoke more with the user, they changed their issue to now, well, if I use Zoom or FaceTime, the audio or video will drop for about 30 seconds or so, and then it comes back. And for most cases, the FaceTime call will just drop completely. And I know I've seen that type of scenario when you're roaming and the roam isn't good, right? Or maybe it's a non-roam in this case, where you've got, you're attached to an AP, you're walking, and your device is trying to go to the other AP. So you're losing quite a bit of signal, and the signal is just really weak to maintain a video or audio call. And then eventually it just drops that signal, right? Because it's too weak, then starts looking for a new signal. And if that happens within the right amount of time, the call will just pick itself back up, right? And Zoom's pretty good at that, at resuming the call. FaceTime, I think, is a lot more sensitive. So if it notices there's it's a bad network connection, it just drops the FaceTime call. And so I decided to work and schedule a Zoom with this guy. For one, if we schedule a Zoom with him and he's on his wireless network, we should see the issue. And so I had help desk join me to understand my troubleshooting thought process of other networks, especially when you don't have all the information to go off of. And so I start looking at, starting from the device first and start asking questions like, is it just this device or is it all your devices on your network? And I already knew kind of the sequence of questions I wanted to ask once he said he had 2 access points, same SSID. So I asked if I could control his screen, and I did set expectations with him saying, I understand you're having issues. I'm here to help solve them for you and come up with the right solution so that way you don't have these issues. And part of that is to try to relax the user, and so that they're not angry or they're not frustrated. You just want them to know that you're on their side. And so a lot of that is patience, right? So this took over an hour, and in the end, I looked at his signal. I was like, hey, your signal is really weak here for Zoom and video calls. Are you sure you're connected to the right AP? Because he thought he said he was sure he was connected to the closest AP, and he was like, hey, look, I'll walk right next to the AP, and we should see the signal get stronger. And as he walked closer to that AP, the signal actually got worse. And so I said, look, I'm pretty sure, almost 100%, that you're connected to the other AP, and we just don't have a good setup here. And so he shut off that other AP, which therefore he ended up recreating the issue that he has, where a loss of signal from the other AP took about 30 seconds, and the Zoom call resumed for him because he was sharing his screen, so he froze, and his Zoom call resumed on the new AP that it associated to. So after that, he was able to get on my side and then listen to me as far as, where are we going to go with the solution, like how should we approach it. And now I think tomorrow we'll go in there, a tech will go in there and actually install a better solution, and I'll make sure it actually works. And so this reminded me of some of the discussion we had on our Slack channel on Clear to Send about troubleshooting. And it came about, Keith talked about his troubleshooting checklists. And so if you go to WLANpros.com/troubleshooting, I think this is one of the best resources you could use and go through, what it looks like, like a flow chart almost of identifying what the issue could be. Because it's, although it could be wireless, sometimes it's not, right? And if you look at even this middle section here, there's a lot more that to a local network than we thought, right? There's a lot going on. And he's got a lot of different troubleshooting causes here, starting with the end user, where I like to start, and understanding what's going on with the client device and the user's behavior, right? And so here it is outlined very well with the process: identify, recreate the issue, locate where that could be and isolate it, and then solve, verify, and document what that issue. So here we are again with these charts, and I think you guys should download these, share them with your service desk folks if you have any. And this chart may be difficult for the average user to understand, but it's a good reminder for us wireless guys to see what it means for us, right? So here, roaming algorithm, that's another thing you try to talk a user through. They just don't. They just won't understand it because that's not their expertise, right? And I don't ever expect them to. But it's really all about setting the expectation. So I always try to drive the user towards, hey, I'm here to help you come up with the actual solution. Just want to know what your problems are first. And so here, this thing just keeps going on and on, right? Wired or wireless problem. And I think you can also apply this to to any other technical issue. It's really the approach you take for troubleshooting. And here we are with even more in-depth troubleshooting. So it looks like it gets more in-depth as I scroll down, right? And I encourage you guys to go look at that. It's wlanpros.com/troubleshooting. So that's my story of troubleshooting yesterday for about an hour, dealing with a user's home network and then basically upselling him on a better home network, something that would facilitate roaming in the house because he had a pretty large home, and I didn't think Apple Extremes were the way to go, especially if he's using the much newer MacBook Pros and iPads. I told him to look at some other solutions, and we can see if we can make his internet more stable. And so there's that. And so now I go into some of the other things that I'm looking at doing besides these live streams. And again, we're at 8 likes. I'm trying to reach 25, I think is 25 likes. And I will share a story, the worst IT mistake I've ever made with you guys. I've never shared this with anybody because why would you want to share these types of mistakes? Well, hopefully for other people to learn from, right? And as you can tell, I've survived in IT. So we all make mistakes. Some of them are worse than other mistakes, but hopefully we can make that recovery. So now I'm going to jump into CCNP, because have you guys seen the CCNP exam? The Encore, the Enterprise Network Core Technologies exam. They've added quite a bit of wireless to this, if you guys haven't noticed. So I did get the book. Here. I got it. This is a big book, guys, for CCNP. But it is CCNP and CCIE Enterprise Core. Jason Gooley also was an author on this. He's just been writing all the books, I guess. But I've barely touched that book because I wanted to dive into the objectives as well. Because if we look at these objectives, so take a look at architecture. 1.2 is analyze design principles of a WLAN deployment. So understanding centralized, distributed, controllerless, controller-based, cloud, remote branch, and also location services in a WLAN design. So this is analyzed under the architecture, which covers quite a bit, I think, right? So we're talking about every single kind of model that Cisco has, including their Meraki-based installation. Maybe even talking about Mobility Express or the embedded wireless controller in this objective, and then location services, which not a lot of people do. And I haven't really seen a lot of location services. We've talked about it at my workplace, but we've never actually deployed it. And so I thought that was interesting that they've got now wireless really in here. I think I saw that somewhere else down here, but I think here it is. Here's another wireless section under infrastructure. So it just says wireless under infrastructure. So now you're going to have to get into some RF fundamentals here, describing RF power, RSSI, SNR, describing some of these AP modes and antenna types, looking at the access point discovery and join process. So this line specifically is probably for the controller-based models and CapWAP. And then describing the main principal use cases for layer 2 and layer 3 roaming, troubleshooting WLAN configuration. I think this is great that we're adding this to the CCNP and CCIE instead of looking at a standalone, because wireless is just part of an everyday network. I was wondering when they were going to push a lot of this to the core part of the certifications. So there's quite a lot to unpack there. And I don't know if they added any bit more, but they do have They do have security, which WebAuth and EAP is part of it. And then we've got automation, which is a huge chunk, 15%. And yeah, CCIE, like Jim says, it's got wireless in it. Even though there is a specialization wireless exam for this. So this is what I'm going to be looking at. I might just start looking at these individual sections here, because I think that's where a lot of people might struggle. And this is where I tell people to take your CWNA first, and you'll really, if you take CWNA first, get your CWNA, you'll really nail down these wireless topics, because this is all covered in the CWNA. And then if we look at the specialist exam, the designing Cisco wireless enterprise wireless networks, this one is a really good one right here. And I don't think there is a book out for it at all. So if you want to take a stab at this one, doing wireless site surveys, and I think a lot of these objectives are pretty vague. So I'm not sure what they're exactly going to cover in each of these objectives. Like collect design requirements and evaluate constraints. Sounds like something they took out of the CWDP exam, but I'm not sure how they are going to test on this. Like, what exactly are they looking for? And I wonder if some of these guys took the CWDP exam from CWNP. But this is pretty good stuff here, even utilizing tools like Ekahau, Air Magnet, Prime Infrastructure, Channelizer, and Spectrum Analyzer, which that could fall under Sidekick or YSpy, or even some of the tools that NetAlly has. And I'm glad they do add wired infrastructure into this wireless exam, because a lot of it is dependent on the wired network, such as the power, PoE, and I'm not sure where they limit this test on. I'm not sure if Wi-Fi 6 is going to be part of this exam. They don't mention anything about it, or at least I don't think they do. But they definitely go into the Cisco specific stuff, right? It is a Cisco exam. So we are going to talk about licensing requirements. We are going to talk about RRM, design requirements. This is good. Like getting people into design requirements, especially on the Cisco side, because a lot of people take the Cisco exam first and oftentimes don't bother with some of the CWNP certs, even though I always say take a look at CWNP before taking a vendor wireless exam. Here we're talking about mesh, wireless bridging. So this is good. I think this is a good exam. It covers pretty much the basics of deploying an enterprise wireless system. I don't know. What do you guys think about both of these CCNP exams and the wireless specialization exam? I think it's a good start for many of us, and I'm looking forward to actually sitting in on these exams and seeing what they're like, and if they are close to what we do in the real world. I know everyone's got their different experiences, but I'd like to see what exactly they test on and what we could use to prepare ourselves for this exam. All right, coming to an end of this live stream. I saw a show last night. I was preparing for this live stream, trying to think about the topics I would talk about. And in the background, I heard a show playing, and they mentioned Bay Area. When I looked at it, they were showing different parts of San Francisco. And in this show, this girl, Zoey, works for a software-based company in San Francisco. And I thought it was funny because not too many shows try to bring the story of Bay Area software SaaS companies onto TV. And so this girl plays the role of a coder. She works with other coders, And the kicker is she could hear people's thoughts in song form. So she's working with people, and I did want to show you a clip because look at the office and the desks. Like it's a crazy setup. So this guy's going to song form, but look at those desks. This is the first thing I noticed. There are no wire drops to these desks, right? There's no Ethernet going to these desks. Some of them were on wheels. So that means this is an all wireless office. And looking at this office, it's a high ceiling. And so I started looking at this going, how would I design the wireless for this office if everyone's on Macs and all that? I thought it was, my wife didn't find it funny at all that this is what I was talking about when this show came up, because I did tell her that this is probably one of the most extravagant offices I've seen, because I do go work with some of the Bay Area companies on their wireless. Tom, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. Look forward to hearing from you soon. And I thought that this office was a crazy layout of an office. And then, so she's a coder, all right? Like, look at her house. She lives by herself. She's got this nice apartment, and it's pretty big. It's got like its own bedroom, its own kitchen with tiles. And there's no way a coder could survive in San Francisco living on their own in a 1-bedroom apartment with a large kitchen and a large living room on their salary. They all usually room with each other, and they all make more money than me. And I know the rent out there is crazy. And I do know of an office that has these kind of steps. It's crazy. It's crazy. There are Bay Area offices that look like this. See, like this one's got wheels. And so I was wondering, how do they power up some of these computers? And so I thought that was, oh, you're not even seeing it. Duh, of course. So I was thinking, like, how do we power up these computers, and how do you design wireless for this type of office? High ceiling. Are you going to use built-in omnidirectional only, or are you going to use patch antennas? Lots of people just sitting around in various locations and fancy chairs, comfy chairs, and on these wooden steps. So this is supposed to be a Bay Area company. Like, look at these things. We do have a location that has something similar to this on my campus. She sells toilet paper on the side. That's how she makes her money. But they do film this in the Bay Area, and I do see very similar, like that is similar to, like, I've seen steps like this in one company. And check this out up here. This is a cereal bar. This right up here, this is a cereal bar. And some companies do have a cereal bar, but this is kind of a crazy setup where they've got more than 3 cereal bars. And I know some of the companies I go to just have 2 or 3 cereals to select from. So I think they kind of are making fun of the Bay Area companies, these software-based companies. Some of the people do dress like this. It was kind of a interesting show. It's called Zoey's Extraordinary Playlist. So she's got this thing where she can hear people's thoughts, but only in song form. Yeah. So I was curious, right? Did you see that house that her apartment? Let me see if I can find it again. It was a really large apartment for a coder. Like, I just didn't believe it. I was like, what? Where does she live? Like, look at that place. That's typically the size of an apartment for a lot of the people in San Francisco. And she's just a coder, a regular coder. So yeah, and they typically don't look that nice unless she lives in Presidio or something where those are multi-million-dollar homes. She's probably got to be one of the neatest coders I've ever seen. But yeah, that's my live stream for you guys. I want to thank you guys for joining me here today. Thank you for spending the time with me to have coffee and talk about different topics such as the DevNet Associate, like what's next. I know some of you guys are also going for the DevNet Associate, talking about CCNP topics, especially the wireless that they've thrown into there, and the CCNP specialization wireless certification, and then just poking fun at some Bay Area companies. We didn't get to 25 likes, so I will save the story for another day. We do have 6 other live streams, but we did get 10, so I really appreciate everyone hitting like on there. But yes, Mike thinks that they must have wireless power set up like that. That powers everything, right? It's kind of crazy. But thank you guys for joining me. It was great, and I will hang around for a little bit if you guys want to chat. But thank you again for participating. I will go live again tomorrow at the same time, 7 a.m. Pacific time. Stay safe out there. Wear a mask. I got my mask here. I'm ready to go. This is it. This is what I'm going to wear when I go to the office. So I hope you guys enjoyed this live stream. I feel like Bane from Batman. But yeah, thanks for joining, Mike. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, from wherever you are joining. I hope you can join me again tomorrow and the next 6 days. We'll see how this goes. I could continue on if I can come up with enough topics, and we'll see how it goes. Maybe I will do some live labs on this. Maybe I will do some live labs. I'm gonna take this off. Maybe I will do some live labs on the stream here. I have plenty of lab equipment. We could try to do something, break some equipment, see what happens. And maybe you guys will be able to access it from the internet. I did test that with Francois. He knows he tried some netconf to my 9800 controller. But thank you guys for joining, and I will see you next time. Bye, guys. Thanks for joining, Jim. Cheers. Check out my script, guys. Using Python 3. I've got that script there that I've taken from DevNet. Enter. Oh, look at that. Gives us the raw XML data. See, there's interfaces there, management descriptions there, and then run a for loop, and you get just these interfaces and whether or not they're enabled. Maybe we'll talk about that on a different live stream.